So I want to start by thanking everybody for giving such positive feedback on my last video. It's real encouraging to see my meet was received so well. And as part of that, I got a couple of questions and comments asking if I do a recap video. And to be honest, I wasn't planning on doing one because if you saw my last 39 videos, you'll know that what I'm trying to do is each week now put up just my training log, raw, unedited clips of training of my top sets, and put some audio commentary over how I thought the week went. I actually already did that for the meet, so you can check that out. But that being said, there's a couple other things I wanted to add in and also remind you guys that I'll be doing that each week. And at the end of all the videos that I make, which before that 39 videos all at once wasn't very much, is at the end of these videos, I'll have an end card. And one of the things I will link is that playlist if you do want to check it out. So let's talk about the meet in general overall. Very happy about it. I went 9 for 9, hit new PRs in squats, deadlifts, and total. With bench, I was actually able to finally work back up to what my opener was pre-injury, so that's very encouraging as well. And I just want to give you a little bit more thoughts or insights because there were some questions that popped up quite frequently. So I just want to address those and some other things as well. So let's talk about squats first. 3 for 3, nice thing there, going all white lights for each attempt. I literally have never been red lighted in squats. Knock on wood. But that's encouraging to me, someone who's always questioning that. It's always nice to be able to go ahead and make sure you hit all your attempts. So there were some questions about why didn't I go heavier than 590. A lot of people thought I was going to try to hit 600 that meet. And to be honest, I don't think it was there necessarily. I think I might have had 595 in me. But one of the things that I'll say that you can't really tell on the video necessarily is I did not feel good on any of those walkouts for any of those 3 attempts. And for me, that's one of the things that really kind of sets the tone for my squat. So if I have a strong walkout, no matter what the weight is, I feel very good mentally about that. And there's a good chance that I'll hit the weight if I feel good during the walkouts. This was not the case during this meet. I think part of the problem was I didn't have my feet fully under the bar. In fact, under my second and third attempt, what I actually had them do was lower the rack a little bit to see if that helped. It didn't. But again, the fact that I was able to hit all 3 squats was very encouraging to me. After my first squat, which felt really, really good, really, really light, I was actually starting to think about my third attempt, so a little premature, and thought maybe I had 595 in me. But come my second attempt, it felt really heavy. And then obviously my third attempt was right on plan at 590, and I think that was the right call for this meet because if I went heavier, there was more negatives than there were potential positives. Obviously, I could have increased my total overall, which would have been a positive and set an even higher PR. But the negatives were that, number one, I might have failed that attempt, which would have dropped my overall score pretty dramatically by about 20 kilos or so, I think. Number 2 is if I did hit it, it wasn't going to be pretty. And the way I lift isn't pretty to begin with as is, and it already is very taxing on my lower back. And I had a grand scheme in mind of that I really wanted to hit over a 700 kilo total. If possible, more around 702 and a half or 705 to also hit 1550 or more. So I had that deadlift in mind because I didn't want to necessarily tire myself out too much. Because if you remember from the previous meet, my third attempt deadlift was an awful grinder. It did go up, but it was around 640 pounds or so, and I wanted to hit more this meet. So I wanted to make sure I was also fresh for that. So I think 590 was the right call. Moving on to bench, everything went decent here. Decent for me, that is, going 3 for 3 again. And with my third attempt hitting around 320 pounds, which again was my opener before I was dealing with this AC joint issue. Just some notes here. I got red lighted on bench for my foot sliding. I don't really recall this happening, and looking at the video on my first attempt, it was on my right foot. I didn't see it, but I'll take the judge's word for it there. The carpet that day was very, very slick and slippery, but I was able to correct it and didn't get a red light on my second or third attempts. The only other issue I really dealt with on bench, besides having a poverty bench, is the fact that on my second and third attempts, my elbows started to flare out pretty bad. The second attempt, they definitely grazed those face savers. The third attempt, it came pretty close, but I don't recall it touching it. But definitely something that I need to look at going forward with these long, lanky arms. And the angles that you see for those lifts, you can see how long my range of motion is, which is awful. I don't know how I can fix that. I can't increase my arch much anymore, and I can't go that much wider on my grip. So it is what it is, but I hope to add some weight on in this training cycle now that my shoulder's finally feeling a little bit better. So that moves us on to deadlift. And again, this is kind of where I wanted to save some energy for, because as part of that, you guys know, with being a conventional lifter and being a taller lifter, my lower back gets hammered pretty hard. And one of the things I want to say is I want to give a big thank you to Matt Geary, who, guys, if you aren't familiar with him, definitely make sure you know who he is. If you lift in the USAPL or IPF, you're probably familiar with him. He's a senior level international coach as well as the head of the USAPL coaching committee. I had a very in-depth conversation with him a couple of days before my meet. He actually helped me with a warm-up selection card. He typically charges for that, and he just did it because he's a nice guy. And it was really insightful to hear some of his thought processes. And one of the things I implemented from that, besides just the warm-ups in general, was specifically for deadlifts. He's a big fan of really keeping deadlifts at singles in terms of warm-ups, where in the past, I do the bar for X amount, then 135, then 225. With Matt and talking to him, he really kind of put this in my mind that I was doing too much, and I completely agree, because my warm-ups, I think, literally went 250 for a single or a double, 350 for a single, 450 for a single, 530 for a single, and then I was on the platform. So literally like 4 warm-up sets of a total of like probably less than 5 reps. And I felt as fresh as I ever had going into deadlifts, and I definitely needed it on this particular day because, again, I set a new PR here, 645, which was awesome. I did get a red light on my 3rd attempt on one of the sides. I'm assuming it was for soft knees, but to be honest, since it was my 3rd lift and it passed overall, I didn't seem to want to question it. I was just ready to get done and change and relax because it was a very long day, but I'm assuming it was for soft knees, as I have gotten dinged for that in the past 4 or 5 meets ago. So overall, hit a 1554 total in pounds. I think it was 705 in kilograms. So PRs on both ends of that. Upped my Wilks score to like 422, which is nice. A little bit heavier for this meet. I weighed in at 104.4, but weight hasn't been something I've been actively tracking, and I would have been completely fine if I was actually in the 120 class, because I was just really concerned with upping my total and upping my Wilks score, and I didn't really want to worry about having to manage my weight. So that's that. We'll be going into a new training cycle soon. This week, I'm just doing a deload. And the next week, I got word that I'll be in Nashville from Sunday to Thursday. So I'm going to try to get some training in there, but it's going to be the start of a new training cycle. I'm not sure when my next meet will be. Initially, I had really looked at May because there's a Rhode Island and Massachusetts State USAPL Championship that's local here in Rhode Island that I usually try to get to. It's a great meet if you're in the area. I highly suggest doing it. But it's like 9 weeks from this date, and factoring in the deload in my week of travel, it probably just doesn't make sense because I won't get that good of a training cycle in, and I had a really short turnaround from my last meet. So I'm looking to just do some training, and I say that now, and I'm starting to think about, because I'll have a longer training cycle, that means a lot more volume initially, so maybe I'm not looking forward to that. But it'll be good overall, and I appreciate you guys coming along for the journey. We'll talk to you soon.